Hi, psychology students. All right, so I'm going to be out for a little bit, but we're going to continue on with memory, and then we're going to move into social psychology, which I absolutely love. But first, let's just go over a little bit of the things that we've been discussing last week. One of them being the process of memory and the memory stages. So the process of memory, first off, is encoding. When you encode, you put information in where it needs to be, and then you have storage and retrieving. And then we have the stages, which is sensory memory, which we look at it and think, okay, do I need to keep this information or do I get rid of it? If I keep it, is it going to be too overwhelming to my system? And then it goes into long-term and short-term memory. So now we're talking about retrieval, the last section in this chapter, and it's kind of a lengthy one, and we've already talked about some of those things, but up on the screen right here is your journal. I'm always going to have a journal for you every day, still you don't get out of that. But first off, what reminds you of elementary school? What are there smells? Are there things, sight? Is there a piece of clothing? So what causes those memories to come forward and to retrieve those memories? And we've already discussed many of these. Recognition, recall. We went through all of this already. Remember the seven dwarfs. Schemas. I'm not sure. I think we got to relearning. So learn something again. And then we got to forgetting. So remember, you're going to have a test tomorrow, but it's going to be an open note test. You cannot use your cell phones, but you can use your notes that you have been taking. So make sure you take good notes. If you've missed some of the notes, it's back on Teams. You can go and look up the PowerPoints, and I've downloaded this PowerPoint today to Teams also. All right, so forgetting is fail to remember, inadvertently neglect to attend, do, or mention something, but out of one's mind. Another thing that we sometimes can have a problem with over time is fading away of memory over time, or decay. It's called decay. There's things that my family will bring up that I can't remember, or when I'll talk to a friend and they'll say, remember when this happened? And I can't remember because I haven't gone over the bridge, so to speak, the memory bridge back and forth to my long-term memory and maintain that memory.
Stanford University.
Point 3. We don't remember what makes us happy. Memories decay. So how many of you agree with memories decay? There we go. All right, so I didn't have to even collect SurveyMonkey data on that. We have some research that shows that Disneyland is one of the worst experiences ever. And most people don't believe that. It's also one of the happiest. People also in America don't believe that happy and sad can go together, but they do. Other cultures have an easier time with that belief system. But in America, we don't believe that happy and sad can go together. And so therefore, when we experience mixed emotions, we attenuate them either to be happy or sad. Now, the happiest place on earth is not going to make you turn those mixed emotions into sad ones, because indeed it's branded the happiest place on earth. And not only that, but the data is suggesting that happy and sad do go together, but people don't remember it as mixed, and so therefore they attenuate. And in the case of Disneyland, which culturally and brand-wise is treated as the happiest place on earth, and then we take pictures of the kids smiling, right? Don't we? Don't we take pictures of us smiling and the kids smiling? And we have those pictures with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and everyone smiling. And then we want to wake up the next day and go back, even though it was quite miserable, right? It was, right? Now, I just want to give you a peek into the real experience because we do research on this. And so therefore, when we write our holiday cards at T. Mocker Smith, we do so with a little different flair. We're not going to have memory decay bias issues in our family. Now, this is an excerpt from our Christmas card from last year. This is Cooper. He's one of our 8-year-old twin boys, and he penned our Christmas card by himself. So I'm going to read to you from it so as to help support the claim I'm making. Cooper writes, a highlight of the year, Disneyland. We prepared for the trip for weeks, filled our jean pockets with cookies for sustenance and brushing up on our Disneyland history. So Cooper continues to write, on arrival, though, we found that the parking to be quite painful, the tickets expensive, the lines long. On the upside, my dad found an iPhone app with a GPS-driven map, ranked attraction checklist, and crowdsourced wait time guide to get us around the park strategically, optimizing our fun while minimizing lines. Unfortunately, the iPhone died in 30 minutes because it used all that technology. Therefore, we were lost. Necessity forced us to try something arguably better, a cleverly coded, color-coded, conveniently foldable, pocket-sized tool. It's called a map. It's provided by Disneyland. Amazingly, it's free. So that was fortuitous. On the way out, though, we met Sandra, our au pair, and Taya Sloan, my 4-year-old sister, outside the haunted house where Sandra was shaking from heat stroke. And being a doctor, my mom recommended she eat some grapes. So seconds later, Sandra's body decided to put the grapes in reverse. And we left Sandra to find a place with less bad advice and fewer bystanders, and she slept the entire car ride home, and we were required to be silent for the whole time. So it ended up on an up note, we can't wait to go back.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.
I thought this was a great example because if you think about it, when you're going to Disneyland, it's supposed to be one of the best places ever, right? But is it? You know, thinking about the planning and the packing and then the organization and then trying to get to the place to park, and then you get there and then the lines are for hours. And so really, what are we remembering? Are we trying to remember things that we're supposed to remember because the society tells us to, or are we really remembering the experience? So interference, blockage of memory by previous or subsequent memories or loss of a retrieval of cue.
You may not realize it, but your brain actually processes information in two very distinct ways. Like when you look at this photo, you instantly know she has blonde hair, is visibly angry, and likely has some choice words to yell. Without any effort, you experienced fast thinking. But if you look at the following problem, something different happens. Sure, you immediately know it's a multiplication problem, and you knew you could solve it if you had the energy, but didn't. If you do try, your muscles will tense, your pupils will dilate, and your heart rate will increase. Now, you've experienced slow thinking. These two systems of fast and slow thinking dictate much of our perception and reaction in life. Take these lines, for example. It's clear that they're different lengths, but if you measure them, they're actually the exact same length. Even now that you know, System 1, or your fast thinking, can't stop seeing the illusion because it acts automatically. A similar effect is seen here. Which figure is the largest? Again, they're all the same size, but the suggestion of perspective and depth causes your System 1 to interpret the picture as three-dimensional, even though it's on a flat two-dimensional surface. It's making quick work of the available information, and so your conscious System 2, or slow thinking, must compensate after the fact and choose not to believe your intuition or instinct. Want to see your System 2 in action? I'll show you a string of 4 digits, you read them aloud, then add 1 to each of the original digits. If the card reads 3795, the correct response would be 4806. We'll then go to the next card and you'll do the same, followed by the next card. Ready? Go. Few people can cope with more than 4 digits, but even harder is add 3. The interesting bit is that though your pupils would have dilated, you often become effectively blind when you fully engage System 2. Did you notice the color of the text change? Or how about the fact that the numbers completely changed when I put them off to the side? Listen to the following puzzle. A bat and a ball cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Chances are your System 1 intuition was yelling 10 cents, but this appealing System 1 answer we know is wrong. In fact, the correct answer is 5 cents. Even if you worked out the correct answer, you likely thought of 10 cents along the way. System 1 is trying to work out an answer as quickly and seamlessly as possible, which is extremely beneficial in everyday life. If every activity required full mental effort, it would be exhausting. But knowing this allows us to understand that not all of our first impressions are correct. How many animals of each kind did Moses take into the ark? So few people detect what is wrong with this question that it's been dubbed the Moses illusion. In fact, Moses took no animals, Noah did. Again, our brain invests as little resources as necessary so that things run quickly and smoothly. Because Moses is not abnormal in the biblical context, System 1 unconsciously detects an association between Moses and ark and quickly accepts the question. In a similar way, System 1 generates context without you knowing. Reading each of the following may seem fairly simple. A, B, C, Anne approached the bank, and 12, 13, 14. But your brain actually interpreted these ambiguous statements without you ever knowing. You could have read it as A, 13C, or 12, B, 14, but your brain created the context unconsciously. Also, you likely imagined a woman with money on her mind walking towards a building with tellers. But if the sentence before this was, they were floating gently down the river, the entire scene would have changed because bank is no longer associated with money. Without an explicit context, System 1 quickly generates one based on previous experience. In this case, you've likely visited more banks than rivers, and so the context is resolved accordingly. This ties into a concept called priming. For example, if I said wash, how would you complete this word fragment? Most would see soap, but had I just shown you the word eat, you'd be more likely to see soup. In this way, both eat and wash prime your thoughts. Though System 2 likes to think that it's in charge and knows what's going on, the truth is that priming effects have even been shown to affect and modify behavior. These arise in System 1, and you have no conscious access to them. If you'd like to learn more about the thinking systems in your brain, check out the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which covers it in great detail.
So one key thing in there that I think we need to make sure we understand is called priming. And I'll say it to you guys quite often, hey, don't create any bias, or priming is what it's called. Another thing we're going to talk about is amnesia, a loss of memory that may occur after a blow to the head or as a result of brain damage. And it can be something also that is traumatic. This video I'm going to show you is about a husband and a wife. They just got married, and on their way to the airport, they got word that one of their best men got hit and hurt in a car accident pretty severely, and it traumatized him enough that he went back to get the wallet, and he forgot what he was doing and actually wandered around for a while until they found him. And still, after the video's over, they still don't know if his memory will come back.
Honey, can you call the kids so we can grab
So
dinner
I'm going to
downstairs?
skip some of this.
To be at home. Ceremony. And then 3 days later, Sean disappeared. And the next time Rachel saw him, his memory was wiped clean. He had no idea who she was. Chris Cuomo has the story of an extreme affliction that could destroy a marriage.
What would happen if the love of your life had an accident and couldn't remember you? Amnesia.
She doesn't remember me.
Hollywood is currently telling this story in The Vow, based on a true story. None could be truer than what you are about to hear. A newlywed husband who forgot the wedding, the vows, forgot what marrying even is, forgot what a wife is.
In my eyes, I saw her as a stranger, but in her eyes, she saw me as her husband.
That stranger was Amy Harrison, who just 3 days after marrying Sean McNulty, lost him to the mysterious world of amnesia.
Didn't know who the president was. Didn't really understand where Houston was versus Austin, what Texas was. He'd lost a lot.
Before their nightmare began, Sean and Amy had been dating for 6 years. During a romantic vacation in Hawaii, Sean proposed.
It turned out beautifully. It was the perfect wedding.
The wedding was as joyous as they imagined. The finishing touch would be honeymooning in Italy. But tragically, one of Sean's groomsmen got in a serious car accident on the way home from the wedding. He was in a coma, clinging to life. Sean and Amy were reluctant to leave his side. Full of anxiety, they were convinced to go on their trip anyway.
We parked our car and took a shuttle bus to the terminal. He realized that he had forgotten his wallet, and he said, "It's probably in the car, I'll be right back."
But as the time ticked by and there was no sign of Sean, Amy began to panic and called Sean's mother.
Amy called and said, "Sean's been gone an hour and 40 minutes. I don't know what to do. I don't know where he is.
She asked the shuttle bus dispatcher to check all the buses for her husband. Still, no Sean. As their intended flight pulled away, Amy was desperate and went looking.
The car was there, the wallet was not.
What did you think had happened?
You know, I thought that he was hurt or that he got mugged or something.
She contacted the police and told them something was wrong. In hours, a search was mounted.
And Amy was crying, Sean's mom was crying.
Tim Miller is the director of Texas EquiSearch, an organization that uses horses to help find missing persons.
We felt as though we was going to find his body 3 or 4 miles from the airport.
The wedding party was now a search party, combing the woods near the airport.
Houston authorities are treating this as a missing persons case and not...
Amy appealed on the local news for any information.
If anyone has seen him, please call the police. We just want him home.
What happened to Sean McNulty? Had he been mugged or kidnapped? Was he escaping a lifetime commitment to Amy? Or something worse? For 3 days they searched day and night, and just as the inevitability of his disappearance set in, a breakthrough. An incoherent and bug-bitten man was discovered by police, wandering aimlessly at this abandoned motel.
I tried to ask him where he'd been, and he really didn't know.
Amy got the news and raced to the hospital.
He just was so dehydrated at that point. He had lost like 30 pounds.
When I immediately saw him, I knew there was something.
He didn't even register that I was there.
He just seemed so out of it. It was very frightening.
I said, do you know your name? And he said, no. And I said, do you remember who I am? And he just shook his head, and that was scary.
The I do's of just days ago had turned into a very frightening, I really can't remember.
Those first few moments when someone comes and says, I'm your wife, I'm your mom. Well, see, I didn't know what wife and mom were.
Sean's mind was a blank slate, and he had to rely on others to explain everything. Understandably, the most difficult time for Amy was when she would instinctively reach out to give her husband a tender touch. For Sean, they were simply gestures from a stranger.
I had to learn how to ask him, can I hug you? And that was hard. And then, when he finally started hugging back, that was nice, so.
6 weeks after his disappearance, Sean still has no memory of anything before he was found, and is relearning about the world around him, guided by Amy, who he's told is his wife.
So what was it like to bring him home the first time?
We had to basically give him a tour of the place and show him around, kind of show him where everything was, things like his clothes and bedroom, bathroom.
Sean was a stranger in his own home, searching for anything to help him connect with his past, drawing a blank at every turn.
How about like bank codes, all those crazy numbers that we all have to remember to get through life? I don't know. They're all gone.
You didn't remember what shows you liked to watch?
I still don't know what shows I like to watch. Just kind of go from what Amy says as far as what we watch.
He didn't even have a concept of what music was, which is pretty troubling for a person who had a nighttime job as a DJ.
You walk into this room, you see all these records. How much of it came back? None. Someone says, oh, this is rock. What's rock?
Taste that a child would recognize had vanished completely.
Like he bit into an orange and didn't realize that it was didn't expect it to be citrusy, didn't understand what it was, and was like, oh, what is this,
Sushi, I like sushi, some spicy foods I don't like. But you did like them once. Yeah. Hey.
Psychiatrist and professor Dr. Daniel Brown has spent years studying the complex workings of the mind. We arranged for Sean and Amy to meet him. With their consent, Dr. Brown shared some of his observations of Sean. This is amnesia.
Amnesia is the memory part, but in addition to the memory part, there's no sense of a personal identity. In other words, he's lost the identity he previously had prior to this episode.
He's not Sean McNulty.
He doesn't know who Sean McNulty is and has no personal memories or autobiographical memories to account for who he might be.
A dissociative fugue state is what Dr. Brown calls this rare condition affecting a fraction of 1% of the population. Doctors say in almost all cases, the memory will return. They just can't say when.
Impressive.
his friends and family began the difficult task of introducing Sean to the old Sean, trying to reignite powerful memories, like the trip to...
All right, so just to kind of understand where he's at right now, he actually had regained his memory a year after, and he said he just looked at a picture one day and it started flooding back. So some of it can be caused by trauma, some of it can be caused by, when we talk about abnormal psychology next semester, there's some disassociation issues that will cause those type of things. His was an identity one in particular, but it can cause by multiple different things besides head trauma. It can be caused by something very traumatic. So we have another thing that's called infant amnesia. Infant amnesia is an inability of adults to retrieve episodic memories before the age of 2 to 4 years of age. Think back. Can you remember anything, when you were born? Can you remember as an infant? Can you remember as a toddler? You might have some fragmented memories, and they might be memories that have been shared with you, so you think you have those memories, but for the most part, most of us don't remember very much and don't retain a ton up to the age of 10 years old. All right, so improving your memory is also vital and very important to help become more efficient in school and to be better, as a whole, and to fend off dementia.
I feel like when a patient comes to me and they have problems with sensitivity and problems with their gums, I have to choose between 2 products. I recommend
And then like this gal, who's totally not fetch, by the way, but I remember everything about her. I wonder why. Hey people, Trace here for D News. When you're trying to remember something, chew gum while you do the task. Researchers at Cardiff University in Wales determined that keeping your jaw busy while contemplating a task not only improved memory, but actually helped you complete the task quicker and with better accuracy. Other studies have shown that it's not just the gum. A Montclair State University study asked people to memorize a set of words while clenching their fist, and that also helped them remember. And a study presented at the British Psychological Society indicated that smelling rosemary helps improve memory too. Subjects in a room scented with rosemary performed better at memory tasks than those in rooms that were room scented. But if I chew gum and I clench my fist, I'm smelling some herbs, I probably won't be able to remember anything because I am too busy trying to do all that other stuff. So why does our brain work this way? What about clenching and sniffing and whatever else helps us to keep these things clear up there? Because the brain is not like a library where the memory is on a shelf and you just have to go find it and grab it. Instead, it's a bunch of sections working together to build a memory by pulling signals from neurons across your wrinkled gray matter. To record a memory, once it's perceived, it's important to pay attention for the best memory building. The experience is processed by the hippocampus, and if your unconscious mind thinks it's worth keeping, it sends it over to long or short-term storage. Learning how to paint or learning how to ride a bike is stored in a different place than regular memory, so that's in the cerebellum. It's called implicit or procedural memory. But that time you won the game for the first time or had your heart broken, that's stored in both the amygdala and the hippocampus. That's your emotional memory. Those two have to interact to recall it. Sometimes your more complex memories require the firing of even more parts of your brain to fully bring them to the front of your mind. With every new experience, your brain slightly rearranges where things are kept, meaning sometimes things do get forgotten or lost in the shuffle. So why does fist clenching and mind games and gum chewing, why do they help memory? Because doing these things slightly alter the way your brain processes information. These slight alterations force your brain to learn to process the new information in a new way. The brain has to use novel pathways to write the new information and then move around old information, strengthening the new memory and your whole brain in the process. Exercise, activity, memory games like adding a mnemonic to a memory can help keep that sharp. Just like how going for a run helps keep your muscles strong, working out your brain will help clean up those connections and improve your memory. Do you have a trick to help you remember stuff? I like to make mnemonics. I once learned one that helps you remember the noble gases in chemistry class. Helium, then neon, then argon, then krypton, then xenon, then radon. Bam, still remember. So how do you do it? What's your trick? Well, share it in the comments with us, and make sure that you keep watching D News twice a day, every day. I'm Trace. Thanks a lot. Catch you later.
So those are some tricks that you can do to help improve your memory. All right, elaborative rehearsal. This is a linking of new information to material that is already known. So scaffolding at building and building and building, and to the point where you have mastered that skill or content.
How do I move items from my working memory into my long-term memory?
Well, we do that by using something known as memory rehearsal, which can be done in one of two ways, by maintenance rehearsal or elaborative rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal is the simple repetition of information in the working memory to encode it into long-term memory. So this is basically repeating over and over the information we are trying to remember. Maintenance rehearsal basically affects our knowing, not our remembering. So this can be good for things like math problems or the elements in the periodic table. Although maintenance rehearsal helps us with those things we should just know, it does not help us to understand concepts in depth. That's where the second technique, elaborative rehearsal, comes in. Elaborative rehearsal is in play when we attach meaning to the information to integrate it into our long-term memory. Imagine if I were to ask you to remember the word learn. You could practice elaborative rehearsal by doing things such as forming a visual image of the word learn by imagining yourself learning. Or you could relate it to a past experience, such as remembering when you first learned to tie your shoe. Finally, you could define the word learn using your own words, like learning means acquiring knowledge. Remember information by relating it to yourself or your experiences in some way. Your ability to recall the information should be improved. This improvement is specifically called the self-reference effect.
Have a test coming up?
Write your own test questions. Not only are you referencing the information to things you already know, but you are challenging yourself to think about the information in new ways. Your mind is then working to understand the concepts.
Should I study everything the day before the test?
Yes and no. Yes, if you've been studying at regular intervals over a long period of time, in this way, the information can further solidify due to the increased exposure to the information over time. But if this is not the case, keep in mind, your working memory can only process so much information at one time, and most of the information will be forgotten within a few hours. So use the information you've just acquired and get to learning.
So just like we've been discussing before, it's vital to make sure you're studying on a consistent pattern and not just doing it the night before, trying to cram that 7 to 11 pieces of information into your short-term memory. Mnemonic devices. So this is a technique for using association to memorize and retrieve information. Can we get rid of bad memories?
This is Nest Audio from Google. But to an enthusiastic shower singer,
Hey Google, turn up the music.
it's the Google Duet Maker. Introducing Nest Audio from Google.
Introducing Amazon Halo. Halo goes beyond counting steps to
Whether it's from an awful breakup or a traumatic life event, some memories can haunt us for our entire lives. But what if there was a way that you could completely forget these altogether? Can science erase your bad memories? Memory is an incredibly complex process. While scientists used to believe that it was like a filing cabinet and particular memories were stored in different sections of the brain, we now know this is incorrect. In fact, each memory is a brain-wide process. If you end up remembering this video, it's because the cells in your brain are being triggered and fired, building new connections and links and literally rewiring the circuitry of your mind. And this change is partially facilitated by proteins in the brain. So what if the proteins aren't available? Simply put, memories can't be made. Seriously, scientists have tested this by giving animals drugs that prevent these proteins from forming. As a result, the animals have no recollection of the things that took place shortly after the drug was taken. From this research, scientists actually found a way to target long-term memories for deletion. You see, every single time you remember a memory, your brain is once again firing and rewiring. In fact, each time you reflect on a memory, you are literally physically changing that memory in your mind. And each time, that memory is altered a little, reflecting your current thoughts. Remembering is an act of creation and imagining, meaning the more you reflect on old memories, the less accurate they become. And scientists have actually quantified this change. After 9/11, hundreds of people were asked about their memories of that dreadful day. A year later, 37% of the details had changed. By 2004, nearly 50% of the details had changed or gone missing. And because memories are formed and rebuilt every time, if you administer the protein-inhibiting drug while recalling a memory, the memory can be effectively removed. To test this, scientists took lab rats and played a sound for them, shortly followed by an electric shock. After doing this multiple times, the rats quickly learned that if they heard the sound, a shock was soon to follow. As a result, they would stress up and freeze every time they heard it. Months later, these rats would still respond to the noise. However, if they administered the drug first, the rats would lose the memory of the sound and simply continue on. They had lost their memory of that specific noise. To be sure the drug wasn't just causing large-scale brain damage, scientists repeated these experiments with multiple tones this time. Both sounds would warn for a shock, and eventually the mice would fear both. But if they administered the drug and played only one of the sounds, the mice would only forget that one tone while still remaining fearful of the other. Over time, scientists have discovered specific drugs to target particular proteins across different parts of the brain. So if you experience a terrible emotion with the memory, then targeting a protein in the emotional regions of the brain can help to remove that connection alone, which could be an amazing tool, especially for patients suffering from something like post-traumatic stress disorder. But while these drugs are in the very early stages, the question remains, if you were given a forgetting pill, would you be willing to take it? Special thanks to Audible.com for supporting this episode and giving you a free audiobook of your choice at audible.com/ASAP.
So just like the question, if you were given a forgetting pill, would you take it? All right, and one of the last things that we're going to talk about is the flashbulb memory. So this is a highly detailed, exceptionally vivid snapshot of the moment and circumstances in which a piece of surprising and consequential or emotional arousing news was heard. One of the things that I personally lived through was the 9/11. Those are vivid memories that I can still remember today. That you remember where you were at, you remember what your feelings were, you remember the news. I remember living in a little duplex, getting ready to go to school and teach, and hearing the news say that somebody may have potentially ran into the World Trade Center on accident, and then the next one hit and they said this is not an accident, and then all of us feeling like the world was coming to an end. So yeah, flashbulb memory, maybe when you get married, or maybe when your crush first talked to you and you can remember every detail about it. All right, so we are going to end there for today. Make sure you have all your notes. I'm going to leave, I'll send this link to the sub to watch if we have enough time in class, Retrieving Memories crash course. But I will have your test ready for you tomorrow, so make sure you have your notes in order and you bring them to class. Go ahead and grab your journals at the front of the classroom. It says in second period. I will grade those when I come back.